welcome aboard the MS Rhapsody of the Seas.
A young woman steps onto a Caribbean cruise with her family, full of life and plans for the future. By the end of that voyage, she has vanished without a trace. This is the story of Amy Lynn Bradley, or rather, the untold side of it.
Last thing that we said to Amy, and I kissed her, was, "I love you. I'll see you in the morning."
Did she inadvertently fall off? Did she commit suicide? Did something nefarious occur where she smuggled off the ship? That puzzle is extremely difficult to put together.
We've been contacted by thousands of people.
The recent documentary recounted Amy's disappearance from the cruise ship Rhapsody of the Seas in March 1998. But there's another layer to this mystery. Today, we're delving into the theories and unanswered questions that weren't covered in the film. A deeper exploration of what might have happened to Amy on that fateful trip, told as a connected story of clues and suspicions.
The disappearance of Amy Bradley is trending in true crime again. Public interest peaking after the release of a new Netflix documentary centered around her unsolved case.
Amy was 23, a recent college grad from Virginia, taking a well-earned vacation with her parents and brother. They were days into the cruise when, in the pre-dawn hours of March 24th, 1998, Amy went missing. The documentary walked us through the basics. Amy was last seen by her family around 5:30 a.m. on their cabin's balcony, and by 6 a.m. she was gone. A massive search of the ship and the sea turned up nothing. But those are just the broad strokes. Beneath the surface lies a tangle of mysteries, inconsistencies, hints, and eerie possibilities that paint a far more complicated picture than a simple missing person case. Imagine the scene. The ship has just docked in Curacao that morning. Passengers are preparing to disembark for a day of island fun. Amy's family, frantic after discovering she's missing, pleads with the crew to keep everyone on board to lock down the ship, fearing something terrible has happened. But instead, the ship's staff delays any announcement. Hundreds of travelers file off to enjoy their day on shore, oblivious to the crisis. In those critical early hours, time and evidence slip away. Later, Royal Caribbean officials would be criticized. Why didn't they sound the alarm sooner? Why did they allow the crew to start cleaning the Bradleys' cabin shortly after Amy vanished, potentially scrubbing away vital clues? These questions hang heavily. It almost feels like a cover-up, or at best, a series of blunders that crippled the investigation from the start. Now, consider the ship's security measures. Modern cruises track everyone coming and going with electronic key cards, SeaPass cards, that passengers must scan when leaving or returning to the ship. If that system was in place in 1998, it could hold a crucial piece of the puzzle. Did Amy ever actually disembark? Strangely, neither the documentary nor official reports mention a SeaPass record. Was this procedure not enforced back then? Or was it used, but showed no scan for Amy, indicating she never officially left the ship on her own 2 feet? If Amy didn't walk off through the proper exit, it means whatever happened to her likely occurred on board. Perhaps she was hidden on the ship for a time, or taken out covertly by other means. That morning's timeline raises eyebrows. A witness saw Amy riding an elevator with a crew member known by the nickname Yellow, sometime around 5:30 a.m. Just 10 or 15 minutes later, that same man, Yellow, was spotted riding the elevator again alone. Amy was nowhere in sight. It's a tiny window of time, one in which something unthinkable might have occurred. Could she have been overpowered and dragged into some crew area in those few minutes? The SeaPass mystery, whether her card was scanned at the gangway, could confirm if she left through normal channels or not, but we simply don't know, because it was never reported or perhaps never checked.
Right away, I said, well, she must have gone up on the deck to take some pictures, drink some coffee. So I fully anticipated going out of the room and finding her up on deck.
I said, there's about 3,000 people on here. There's 3,000 eyes and there's 3,000 ears. You've got to put out a picture. You've got to make an announcement that she's missing. We need help.
He said, we can't make an announcement like that. It will disturb the passengers.
Who is this Yellow? His real name is Alistair Douglas. a friendly Barbadian crew member, a singer in the ship's band. Amy and Yellow had struck up a camaraderie on the cruise, the kind of easy vacation friendship that seems harmless. They danced together at the club on the last night. By all accounts, Yellow was one of the last people to see Amy alive. In the documentary, he insisted they parted ways around 1 a.m. and that he went to bed. Yet multiple witnesses suggest their paths crossed again near dawn.
We're just dancing, having a good time until I got back to the room, I think around 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was sitting outside on the balcony, and I think it was around 4:15 or 4:30 that she came in and joined me on the balcony.
The mere fact that Yellow was with Amy very late and then seen without her shortly after raises suspicions.
She said she was going to stay out on the balcony and get some fresh air, so I told her I loved her and went inside.
And it doesn't end there. Months after Amy's disappearance, a Canadian scuba instructor and his wife came forward with a startling story. While diving during a trip to Curacao, one of the same islands on the cruise's route, they swore they saw Amy on a beach, in the company of 2 men. One of those men, they claimed, was none other than Yellow, the cruise ship band member.
We were over in a small area where we wash off the equipment in fresh water, and I looked down the beach and I saw a girl walking down the beach with being flanked by 2 people.
The woman they saw had the same distinctive tattoos as Amy, a Tasmanian devil cartoon on her shoulder, a sun on her lower back, a Chinese symbol on her ankle. She even called out to the scuba divers for help before the men quickly whisked her away. This sighting, if true, is like a beacon of hope and horror all at once. Hope that Amy was alive after vanishing, and horror at the context, apparently under guard, unable to escape. The documentary omitted an important follow-up question. Where was Yellow at that time? Yellow had told authorities he continued working on the cruise ship for years after 1998, implying he couldn't have been lounging on a Curacao beach with a captive Amy. If the FBI or Royal Caribbean ever verified Yellow's employment records, they haven't said publicly. If he truly was on the ship continuously, it would cast doubt on the scuba instructor's story. Maybe it was a look-alike woman, or the couple was mistaken. But if his timeline doesn't hold up, it suggests Yellow might have secretly left the ship or taken time off, meaning the sighting could be completely real, and tragically, that authorities missed a chance to rescue Amy. It's frustrating to think that something as simple as checking a crew roster or time card could affirm or debunk this crucial lead, yet we're left to wonder. And what of the second man spotted with them on that beach? He remains a mystery. No composite sketch of this unidentified accomplice was ever made public. The scuba instructor described a tall, older man with them. Reports vary, but that's the gist. Who was he? Could he have been another crew member or someone in a local criminal ring? Without a sketch or a name, this third man is a ghost in Amy's story. A ghost the documentary didn't even mention. It's one more thread left dangling, one more face lost in the crowd.
Some of the shots were Amy's tattoo on her ankle. Another shot was her facing away and a tattoo on her shoulder. She stood like Amy, she was built like Amy, and so we thought it was Amy.
Now let's rewind a bit to another chilling account from shortly after Amy disappeared. A witness, a tourist, reported an encounter in a ladies' room, possibly in the Curacao cruise port. This woman claimed that as she entered a restroom, a young woman with short hair, Amy had a distinctive short haircut, walked in with a man. The young woman appeared disheveled, anxious, even terrified, and as the stranger, the man, glanced around, the witness got the gut feeling something was very wrong. The frightened woman, who the witness later believed was Amy, apparently tried to communicate with her, but the man intervened and ushered the young woman out before anything else could happen.
So he didn't do anything to help her, and she was motioned away by men and went upstairs.
Imagine carrying the weight of that sight for years, wondering if you had seen a kidnapping victim alive just moments from potential rescue. One has to ask, was that man in the restroom Yellow, the friendly crew member turned sinister? Or was it perhaps that other unknown man from the beach sighting? Unfortunately, this early tip didn't lead to a resolution. The witness's story, while compelling, remains unconfirmed. What it does do is reinforce a pattern. Multiple people, independent of each other, reported seeing Amy after she vanished from the ship, each time accompanied by one or two men, and each time looking distressed or under duress. This is no coincidence. It paints the outline of a kidnapping and human trafficking scenario. The theory that Amy was abducted into a trafficking ring is probably the most terrifying, yet it's supported by some of the strongest testimonies. Perhaps the most credible witness of all emerged about a year after Amy went missing, a United States Marine. In 1999, this Marine, we know him as Frank, though he initially kept his identity under wraps, came forward with a story straight out of a nightmare. He said that while on a mission or training exercise in the Caribbean, he and some buddies visited a local brothel, a decision that would haunt him. In one of the rooms, he claims he met a woman who told him her name was Amy Bradley and begged for help. She told him desperately that she was being held against her will and needed someone to get her out. The Marine remembered the encounter vividly. The woman had the same short brown hair, the same tattoos Amy was known to have. She even mentioned details like, "My name is Amy from Virginia," so specific that it's hard to dismiss. The Marine didn't immediately report this. He was somewhere he shouldn't have been after all, and fear of military discipline kept him quiet at first. But the guilt gnawed at him. By the time he alerted authorities and Amy's family, many months had passed. The brothel, located in Barbados, had reportedly burned down. Whether by accident or arson to cover up crimes, no one knows. And Amy was nowhere to be found. Still, this Marine's account is chilling and, to many, highly credible.
Frank Jones stole 2 years of our ability to be able to do the legitimate things that we needed to do to find Amy. I think about it at this point and I get so angry over the amount of time that we lost.
He had nothing to gain and risked his reputation to tell it. In his story, Amy even mentioned something that caught investigators' attention. She said she wasn't free to leave because she owed her captors money, about $200. That detail might sound odd, but consider this. Back on the cruise, Amy's personal wallet, later recovered by her parents, had no cash in it at all. Amy was a recent college grad. It's unlikely she had a lot of money on her, but family found it strange that even her small stash of spending money was completely gone. Could it be that whoever took Amy robbed her of any cash and then later concocted a debt, like $200 for expenses, to keep her compliant? It's a common tactic among human traffickers. Force victims into prostitution and claim they owe money for food, lodging, or purchase costs, enslaving them to pay off an ever-growing debt. The Marine's testimony, combined with these little clues, strongly suggests Amy was alive for some time after her disappearance and trapped in a nightmarish life. Now, if all these witness accounts are true, a dark picture forms. Amy might have been lured or snatched from the cruise ship and sold into sexual slavery in the Caribbean. But how was this done on a crowded ship without immediate detection? Let's go back to that idea of Yellow and possibly other crew members being involved. Some onlookers theorize that an organized ring of traffickers may have infiltrated the cruise staff. Perhaps they were on the lookout for a young woman like Amy, outgoing, friendly, trusting, and marked her as a target. Recall that on the evening before she vanished, Amy was socializing with the band and crew at the dance club. She even won a limbo contest that night, becoming a bit of a star among the partygoers. People noticed her, and not all that attention was harmless. There are rumors that one of the waiters or staff members slipped Amy a note, inviting her to a special party at a bar in Curacao once the ship docked. Think about that. Someone who works on the ship tries to get Amy to meet them ashore, off the safety of the boat. If this is true, it indicates a degree of planning. Amy, being in vacation mode, might have thought, sure, meeting the friendly crew for a drink on the island sounds fun. We don't know if she ever saw the note or agreed, but if she did, it could explain why she would leave the ship early that morning. Perhaps she intended to step out briefly, even before her parents woke up, to meet a crew friend for an excursion. That could be why she took her cigarettes and her room key card, essentials she'd need if she were stepping off the ship voluntarily. Yes, those little details matter. Amy was rarely without her Marlboro lights. Interestingly, after she vanished, her father noticed that her cigarettes and lighter were not in their usual spot on the table. That strongly suggests Amy grabbed them, likely on her way out of the cabin. If she had accidentally fallen overboard from the balcony, those cigarettes would still be there on the table or the balcony. But they weren't. They were gone, presumably with Amy. It's the kind of personal clue that speaks volumes. Smokers don't go far without their smokes. So if Amy took her cigs, it hints she intended to go somewhere. On the other hand, Amy's flip-flop sandals were found in the cabin. In fact, her family later confirmed all her shoes were accounted for in her luggage, meaning if she left, she likely left barefoot. Strange as that sounds, it might have a simple explanation. Maybe she was in a hurry or felt comfortable enough on a warm, tropical morning to go without shoes. Or if someone coaxed her out momentarily, "Hey, come up to the deck, look at the sunrise," or "Come meet me just outside real quick," she might have stepped out as she was, expecting to be right back. It's hard to imagine a scenario where she'd wander the ship or an island barefoot unless she was intoxicated, groggy, or under pressure. Could she have been drugged? Amy's family and others have speculated. What if someone, say Yellow, slipped something into her drink the night before? Perhaps that's why she was seen stumbling, or was unusually easy to lead away at 5:30 a.m. Her mother recalled Amy wasn't a heavy drinker to the point of impairment. She was cautious. So, a drug could be a sinister factor. Picture Amy stepping out of her cabin around daybreak, maybe still in the clothes from the night or a t-shirt and shorts. She quietly leaves the cabin, not wanting to wake her dad and brother who are asleep inside. The balcony door is left slightly ajar from when she was last outside. If she opens the cabin's main door, a rush of sea breeze creates a wind tunnel effect, a known quirk on cruise ships when balcony and hallway doors are open at once. In fact, her father, Ron, did wake around that time, sensing a change in the air or a noise like a door closing. He said something stirred him around 6 a.m. By then, the cabin door was shut again, but Amy was gone, and the balcony door was wide open about a foot. If Amy left on her own, that small gust or click might have been what woke him, just seconds too late. He got up to check and found only emptiness on that balcony. One can imagine Ron stepping out onto that deck, looking down to the pier expecting to see his daughter but seeing nothing. The sheer confusion and panic that must have set in. Did she fall overboard? Did she go to get coffee? As minutes pass and Amy is still nowhere to be found, the Bradleys raise the alarm.
Right away, I said, well, she must have gone up on the deck to take some pictures, drink some coffee. So I fully anticipated going out of the room and finding her up on deck.
And here's where another infuriating question comes in. The cruise line's response. Royal Caribbean staff conducted a search of the ship, but bizarrely, they allowed crew members to search their own quarters.
I said, there's about 3,000 people on here. There's 3,000 eyes and there's 3,000 ears. You've got to put out a picture. You've got to make an announcement that she's missing. We need help.
Think about that. If one of the crew was responsible, you just gave them time and privacy to hide any evidence. It's like letting a fox check the hen house and report back, "No chickens here?" In any proper investigation, you'd have independent security or police search all areas, including staff-only zones, with nobody allowed to tamper. But on that ship, the procedures were lax. To make matters worse, before any forensic examination could be done, the Bradley family's cabin was cleaned by housekeeping. Fresh sheets, wiped surfaces, any fingerprints or traces of a struggle potentially erased. It's mind-boggling. Amy's parents have long believed that this premature cleaning destroyed critical evidence that could have shown if someone else had been in the room or on the balcony. Was there a handprint on the railing? Scuff marks from shoes or a struggle? We'll never know. The documentary hinted at these missteps, but the full extent of Royal Caribbean's botched handling or deliberate negligence wasn't explored. Many observers feel the cruise line put public relations over finding Amy, avoiding a scene that might alarm the other guests. After all, a day in port means money from excursions and happy tourists, not panic over a missing girl.
He said, every nook and cranny of this ship has been searched. Your daughter is not on this ship.
The more one looks at all these details, the more one gets an icky feeling about the cruise ship itself. Could an entire criminal plot have been executed right there on board? Some theorists believe that multiple crew members were involved in targeting Amy. Perhaps Yellow was the recruiter who singled her out, befriended her. Another crew member, maybe that mysterious older man, helped incapacitate or carry her off, and others kept quiet, paid off by whatever criminal network received Amy on shore.
He comes up to me, and the first thing he said was, he said, "Hey man, I'm sorry to hear about your sister."
It's a horrifying thought, but not unprecedented. Trafficking rings have been known to bribe or place operatives in positions to prey on tourists. And a cruise ship, with its transient population and international waters, is a perfect hunting ground if security is weak. Even after the ship returned and Amy's disappearance made headlines, the nightmare didn't end for the Bradley family. In the years that followed, they chased every lead. They flew back down to the Caribbean multiple times. They plastered flyers, worked with private investigators, and set up a website to gather tips. On that website, a strange phenomenon occurred. Someone, apparently in the Caribbean, kept checking the site. The family noticed that there were recurring visits from an IP address in Barbados. Over and over, someone there was looking at Amy's photos and updates on the site, sometimes for long periods. Barbados, notably, is one of the places where the Marine claimed to see Amy in a brothel. Could it be that Amy herself, or someone close to her, was secretly accessing the site, yearning for home, or tracking what her family knew? Or perhaps one of her captors was monitoring the family's activity. We don't have the answer, but it's an eerie digital footprint. Imagine being Amy, stolen away, and the only way you can glimpse your loved one's efforts is to sneak onto the internet and visit the site they made for you, hoping they haven't given up. That thought alone is haunting. The documentary didn't touch on these IP address clues, but they fuel the determination of online sleuths. If those connections were traced in real time, might authorities have homed in on a location to raid? Sadly, by the time patterns emerged, the trail was too vague to act on. An IP gives only a general area without cooperation from local authorities. The Bradleys' ordeal also attracted the cruel side of humanity. Not every lead was genuine. Desperate for answers, the family got preyed upon by con men.
Human trafficking is a huge concern, and people go missing from cruise ships. They go missing from resorts around the world all the time and sold into sex slavery. It's run by cartels around the world, so it's definitely something to be taken seriously.
The documentary left out one particularly heartbreaking incident. A man pretending to be a Navy SEAL approached Amy's parents, claiming he had intel on Amy's whereabouts. He spun an elaborate story that Amy was being held by traffickers and that with funding, he and his team could conduct a daring rescue.
He said that two girls were at a table and he sat down and one of the girls approached him and leaned in and said, "My name is Amy Bradley and I need help."
For any parent, it's impossible to ignore the chance to save your child. Over time, Amy's family gave this man upwards of $30,000 to fund the rescue operation. They waited on pins and needles, thinking any day now he'd bring their daughter home. It turned out to be a fraud, a cruel scam. There was no team, no rescue mission. He was taking their money and feeding them lies. When this was discovered, the family was devastated all over again.
We asked him, why didn't you help her? Why couldn't you have gone to the ship that you were on and gotten help? You're a Navy guy. And he basically explained that he was in an unauthorized situation and that he thought he'd get in trouble. He would have been a hero, but he didn't help her.
Not only were they back to square one, but their trust had been betrayed and precious resources wasted. It's an example of the unimaginable secondary trauma families of missing persons sometimes face. People with no conscience will exploit tragedy for profit. The Bradleys did eventually help law enforcement catch and prosecute that scammer, but the damage was done. This was another facet the film didn't mention, likely because it was focused on Amy's case itself, but it's essential to understanding what the family went through and why they might not have hired more private investigators later on. As some critics have wondered, they spent their life savings searching for Amy, through both legitimate and illegitimate means, and were left financially and emotionally drained. Through all this pain, Amy's family never stopped searching for answers. Over the years, a photograph surfaced on a pornography website showing a young woman strikingly similar to Amy. In the image, the woman, who was advertised under the name Jazz, has an eerie, vacant look in her eyes. Investigators who compared the photo to Amy's pictures noted the resemblance and even some identical body marks.
Could these possibly be Amy? Heavy makeup, kind of wild hair. My sister, the artist, first thing she does is she takes the picture. She said, squint your eyes at that picture and see what you see. And Beth, when I squinted, it was like, it just shocked me. It was just Amy.
Amy's parents were shaken. Her mother was nearly certain it was Amy, aged a few years. This photo, essentially an advertisement for sex services, suggested that Amy might have been sold and advertised in the underground sex trade. The FBI got involved, but tracking down the origins of a single photo on an adult site proved incredibly difficult. Still, that image remains one of the most haunting pieces of evidence that Amy did not fall off that ship and die. Instead, she may have lived on in captivity for several years after 1998. It's the kind of thing the documentary showed briefly, because it's well known in Amy's case. But when you consider it alongside everything else we've discussed, the witnesses, the clues, it becomes part of a clear pattern pointing to one conclusion: human trafficking. Before we conclude, let's address the elephant in the room. What if all these theories are wrong, and Amy's fate was a tragic accident? It's important to remain objective. Some skeptics of the trafficking theory argue that Amy could have wandered to a quiet area of the ship, maybe even climbed up on a railing for a better view, or to take a photo of the sunrise over Curacao, and then accidentally fell overboard into the sea. It's not impossible. Amy was a strong swimmer and an athlete, but a fall from a high deck could injure or knock someone unconscious. If she fell into open water before anyone was awake, the currents could carry a person away quickly, and the search might never find them. There was no blood, no signs of struggle on the ship, and that's true. The official initial theory was indeed that maybe Amy fell, or even that she could have died by suicide, though her family vehemently rejects that. She had so much to look forward to. Those who doubt the trafficking scenario often point out that eyewitness accounts can be mistaken or even fabricated. In many missing person cases, well-meaning people report seeing someone who looks like the victim, and it often turns out to be a false lead or a case of mistaken identity. Could that be what happened here? The scuba couple might have seen a woman with tattoos who wasn't Amy. The bathroom witness might have encountered a different distressed girl. The Marine's story, some say, could even be a cruel prank or a mix-up, though it seems far less likely given his detail. We have to acknowledge these possibilities, however slim, to paint the full picture. Yet, even if we consider accident, there are pesky details that don't line up. For one, None of Amy's belongings ever surfaced in the sea. If she fell overboard with, say, her cigarette pack in hand or her lighter, those items might later wash ashore or be found floating. Cigarette packs have buoyant cellophane. None were. No clothing, no shoes drifting in the waves. And the timing of events on the ship, that quick 15-minute window with yellow, it feels more consistent with an abduction than a solo accident. Also, seasoned cruise investigators find it odd that no camera footage was caught of Amy that morning. Even in 1998, the ship had CCTV in certain areas. If Amy had roamed the hallways or gone up to an upper deck, perhaps a camera should have glimpsed her. The documentary didn't mention footage at all, suggesting that either it was checked and showed nothing, or the cameras were limited. But notably, no one saw Amy on deck or on shore that morning aside from those contested witness stories later. So if she fell, it means she managed to go to a deserted area, unseen by any of the early risers or crew, and topple into the sea silently. It's possible, but many find it doubtful given how sociable and visible she was earlier. So where does all this leave us? With a lot of unanswered questions, unfortunately. Over 2 decades have passed, and Amy Lynn Bradley's fate is still unsolved. But by examining these overlooked clues and theories, we keep the search for truth alive. Was Amy betrayed by someone she thought was a friend on that ship? Did a conspiracy of traffickers target her from the moment she stepped on board? Or was it all a tragic coincidence and misfortune? Each theory leads to its own story. If it was foul play, the story is one of betrayal and horror. A young woman sold into a dark underworld, a family fighting desperately to trace her steps across countries, encountering deceit and danger along the way. It's a story where the villain could be the very people entrusted with passengers' fun and safety, and where a corporation's fear of bad press possibly impeded a rescue. If it was an accident, the story is one of a devastating loss, made even more painful by endless uncertainty. A life cut short by a fall into the ocean's abyss, with the truth obscured by a lack of evidence and the torment of what if, as family and investigators chase shadows for years. At this point, though, most of Amy's family and followers lean toward the foul play scenario. There is just too much that points toward kidnapping. The numerous independent sightings, the photograph, the behavior of certain crew members, the inconsistencies in procedure, it all suggests that Amy didn't just disappear. She was taken. As a final somber thought, if Amy were alive today, she would be in her late 40s. It's painful to imagine everything she missed and everything she may have endured. Some who believe she was trafficked hold out hope that maybe she's still out there, perhaps in a completely different life, perhaps having even forgotten or given up on being found due to trauma. Others fear the worst, that if she was taken, she likely did not survive long in that brutal world. But until concrete evidence emerges, a body, a confirmed sighting, something, her case remains open and her story unfinished. What truly happened to Amy Lynn Bradley on that spring morning in 1998 remains one of the cruise world's most haunting mysteries. It's a case that forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. How well do we really know the places and people we trust on vacation? How quickly can joy turn to tragedy? And how thin is the line between an accident and a crime? The documentary scratched the surface, but as we've journeyed through these other theories and unanswered questions, it's clear there's so much more to consider. We end not with answers, but with a call to remember Amy and others like her. Every tip, every theory, no matter how outlandish it may seem, is a sign that people haven't forgotten. Somebody knows something. Perhaps one day, a guilty conscience will lead to a confession, or a new piece of technology will uncover evidence that brings closure. Until then, the best we can do is keep Amy's story alive, and keep asking the questions that need to be asked. The truth may be out there, buried under years of silence, waiting for the light